person. 407, basically. All right. Welcome, week 2, Connection Lost. We have a name now. It's very exciting. Obviously, that new intro you just heard, not you live folks, but if you're listening to the recorded versions, you just heard an awesome intro. Thank you to Toast King for sponsoring us for that. He actually pitched in and gave us money for it. That's very exciting. Joining us this week, of course, myself, Barrows Boy. I am Kiefer's. We have a special guest, and that's going to be a regular thing here on Connection Lost. It's freaking Joey. I don't know where he is on the live version. I'm pointing, which is silly.
I think below you.
Sure, below. Let's go with that. Either way, Joey's here. He is the DM of our D&D campaign, which if you listened to last week, obviously we talked a good bit about. And of course, a fellow RuneScape streamer. So we're going to be talking.
I think the D&D has become a big part of a lot of our lives.
Yeah,
since it started.
I'm so thankful for being invited. I don't know how many times I've said that, but it's been awesome. Anyway, this week on the podcast, I think one of the most suggested pieces of I guess the input we got was give us a rundown of what you're talking about at the beginning. So here we go. This week on the podcast, if we can get to them, we're going to talk about the Cerberus boots that are coming out, the new Slayer update that we've been waiting for a while now. It's coming in August. We're going to be talking about it. The tournament, the 5v5 tournament that Jagex attempted to host just today, of course. The music cape is coming to Old School. We're going to touch on it. And then later on, we will be talking about the polling system with Joey, since he feels very strongly, and of course, Keith and I both as well. Have some opinions about that. And of course, we'll get to your questions and many more past that, but that's what you can expect for now. Keith, what have you been up to in the gaming world this week?
Oh, man. Well, D&D, first off. I want to start off with that because D&D was probably the best D&D session by far for me as far as enjoyment and like, to me, it felt like a season finale. Like it was like a lot of crazy things happened, and now it's the wait for the next one. Feels like watching a TV show or something. It was such a good time. Really excited for that. So that'll be on Tuesday. You both know this, but other than that, as far as Scape goes, a lot of Slayer. Did get a Visage on my task the other day. This is one of the most crazy things that's actually happened to me as a streamer so far with RuneScape, because what happened was. And I don't do this very often. It's very rare. But I got a Steel Dragon task. Had a good feeling. Turned the music off. Looked the webcam right in the eye at the chat and said, look, I'm getting a Visage on this task. Like, it's going to happen. Which a lot of people like to do that every single time they get a task like this or something. But
Joey's Clue Scrolls. Great example.
Exactly. Every time he gets one, third age, here we go. Like, it was random. I don't know why I even did it. But sure enough, 20 minutes later, there's a Visage on the ground. Unfortunately, the audio was deleted from the past broadcast, so there's no video for it, which is a bit of a bummer. I would love to send that into SparkMac or Chris Archie Prods, but I was there, so I got to see it. So it's not like
I was there too.
Yeah.
I had the stream minimized in another tab, but I had the audio going, and I heard you call the Visage earlier in the stream, and then I heard you freaking out. I immediately clicked over the tab, and I saw it lying on the ground. I was like, "That son of a bitch!"
I actually scared my chat today because I hit like a 52-63 with Crystal Halley on an Iron Drag, and I went, "Oh shit!" And chat was like, "What the fuck? No Visage?" Like I was like, "Oh, not bad."
Yes, D-Bones.
I was probably more excited that I hit that high than I would have been at a Visage. Anyway.
It was funny going back and watching the clip though, because it wasn't audio deleted for a while. It was so close to my third age reaction for like a solid 5 seconds. It was like, why? I don't know why I was that hyped. I think it was just because I called it, but like I freaked out. It was amazing. But other than that, just been doing a lot of Slayer, unlocked Smoke Devils, had a couple of those tasks. Nothing crazy from them yet, but working on saving as many points for the upcoming Slayer update, which was announced that they will be releasing it in August. In small batches. It's not going to all be at once. So,
did they say which one is going to be first?
They haven't specified exactly how they're doing it. They just said they're going to release it in batches throughout August.
Presumably, and we'll obviously get to this, but presumably I would assume it would be task system rework, boss slayer, Cerberus, probably along those lines, but who knows. Either way, it's about the same with me. Lots of Slayer, nothing crazy new. Corp, Slayer, nothing interesting. I got 2007
no
total. No Spectrals, thank God. But yeah, Joey, what have you been up to, man?
Oh God, as far as RuneScape goes, just a lot of combat. I have 2 accounts now. My Skiller, which is my main, the first account I made, which is almost maxed. Then I got bored and burnt out of that, and I decided to start my first ever combat account in 10 plus years of playing the game several months ago, and that's going pretty well. It's pretty much the exact opposite of my Skiller. It's all combat and Slayer and no skills, and my other stat is all non-combat and no actual combat. So it's been a lot of fun. I'm finally now getting to the point where I'm starting to unlock decent tasks, good drops. Just got 85 Slayer, almost 86, and we'll be maxing that out in no time at all. That's pretty much all I've been
you're
up
getting
to.
there. How long have you actually been working on that account? Because when like I look at it, I look, wait, you've been a skiller and you have this like account just like sitting there. So is
About
it
3 months.
Wow, I'm impressed.
If only you could combine the two accounts to make just
Right.
this one ultra account.
Yeah, the thing with me is I'm more about creating like unique account builds, and I guess the one I'm creating now isn't super unique, but you can definitely at least tell it's not a Nightmare Zone prod or anything like that. But generally, I prefer unique account builds over just all around, really really good high leveled accounts.
No, for sure, for sure. I definitely understand you getting burnt out too. Like, I mean, you got what, rune crafting and
Yeah, I've got
mining?
91 out of 99 rune crafting and 91 out of 99 mining, 75 construction, I have it banked, and then 97, almost 98 smithing. Those are my last 4 stats. Really wish I didn't save mining and rune crafting for last. Those.
I mean, I understand why you saved them, and I understand why you would get burnt out because like that just sucks. Those skills are terrible in 07. We haven't gotten to the point of like, hey, here's the like, this game has been out 20 years. Let's make people catch up quickly. You know, the rune span, the living rock caverns. We don't have it yet.
But doing combat opens me up to a lot of new experiences and just more avenues to explore. So I'm enjoying all parts of it now.
I mean, it's interesting watching your stream because there's a lot of stuff that you can kind of tell is new to you. So I'm looking forward to you going bossing and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, chat makes fun of me all the time.
And obviously, I would love to like go bossing. I mean, we should like go bossing, us three. Like, fuck it, let's do it.
Oh yeah,
D&D
my stats are
bossing
getting
trips,
close to that point.
I want them to get up to like max melee so we can PK together, like against each other, because it'll be perfect. Like I know nothing about PKing, he knows nothing about PKing. Like I think it'll just be like this ultimate fail fest.
That
That'd be
actually would be amazing.
really amazing.
I'll
Yeah.
pay to
Our
see
Derek
it, damn
fights
it.
would be pretty entertaining.
I would love that. All right. Moving forward, Cerberus, we already touched on it in our little intros, obviously, but this is exciting. Obviously, Keith and I are really excited for this update. We're getting another high-level Slayer update. That was kind of controversial when it was coming out, but, more Slayer, lots of old-school like Slayer. So here we go. We're getting the 3 new boots, best-in-slot boots. You may be familiar with Glacors when those came out in RuneScape originally. These are basically reskins and renames. They stat-wise, I think they're identical. It's been something that I've been clamoring for a very long time because it's like, hey, we have room to move forward in the boots. Let's move forward. We can, increase stats without making things overpowered, open up a lot of content, and these are great for end-tier bossing because for whatever reason, these boots, or at least the ones in RS3 before EOC came out, kept very high values. So it's definitely going to be a good thing for those of us like me who like chasing those big valuable drops. But Alfred, who is the one, I think it's Alfred, who is Mr. Mod Alfred, who rejoined the Jagex team after whisking away to finish his schooling. He is doing all the graphics and animation work for Cerberus. He has recently tweeted out, and again, in the description, if you're on YouTube or SoundCloud, the designs for the boots. He basically came up with his own version of the older boots, and he made reskins, like exact copies of the older boots, and kind of reached out to the community. Here's your opinion. What do you want? And it was about 50-50. So what he did was he kind of combined them, and he added wings and did a little darkening of some colors here and there to kind of make them match. So I'm excited. It's visual now. If you saw the Q&A streams, you've seen the animations now. It's actually happening, kind of thing. So I'm very excited.
One thing about these boots, I don't know much about them from RS3 or anything like that, but from my understanding, they are essentially just the boots with like a gem added to them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so economically, it's keeping the boots before them in value, or at least, will help keep them relevant.
The design itself
nice.
looks amazing. They're great designs, but it doesn't make sense to me. The design's cool,
Lore-wise,
but you're just adding a gem to these boots.
Yeah,
Why?
and it's funny you say that because some of the original designs they gave us, one of the original designs Alfred gave us had an option to have these gold pieces that theoretically would be the gem. So yeah, we kind of moved away. I guess he moved away from that, kind of in favor of, I don't know, fuck lore. Let's make it look good, which I don't mind so much. Jagex does a really good job of keeping in line with lore a lot, so I'm not super upset about it.
I'm just looking at them right now. I love it. I think they look great. I'm sitting here looking at like the D boots or the Rangers. Like we've seen them for so long. It's nice to see like a pretty big visual change on them. It's just something new, unique. I'm fallen in with liking new, unique things, the old school
Yep.
things that they don't necessarily get on the RS3 server, but maybe kind of inspired by them at this
Right.
point. So I've got all three waiting in the bank, and I've got the Slayer level for Cerberus, so I'm pretty excited to
No,
actually.
I see the Ranger boots and the Dragon boots. What's the other one? What
Those are
Infinity.
Infinity.
Okay,
It's
gotcha.
the mage version.
Yeah, and I think
Gotcha.
Alfred said he's going to change the color scheme a little bit on the Eternal boots, just so they match the Infinities a little bit more. Just so
Yeah,
it
the
makes
blue's a
more
little
sense.
off.
It's a
but
little too light. In fact, I wouldn't be opposed to like just darkening them on the whole. I think that would be my artistic critique. Certainly, it's not my job though. So Alfred, do your thing. They look good with good on him for taking the pictures with like meta setups. So obviously, if you're looking at the picture, you can see he took the first one with bandos, and the second ones were with setups you'd actually use the boots for. So I like that he did that. I think very smart of him, and it really puts it in perspective. You can actually see, here you go.
I love the range ones. The green on green just looks so good.
I could see myself just wearing those as part of an outfit, not actually
That's
for the stat boost.
Well, that's
Fashion
basically
state,
why I
baby.
have Ranger boots. I'm going to be perfectly honest. One of my subbies gets Ranger boots from a Clue, and I'm like, this sounds like a good excuse to get Ranger boots, so I buy them from him, and I don't actually use them. But that brings up a good point, which is, where are these going economically? And I think it's kind of, I talked about it in my stream earlier. Which pair do you think will be most expensive? Because it's not right out in front of you. And I thought, melee boots, obviously. But then you think, okay, you got a 20 mil invest already with Ranger boots to get the Pegasian, I don't know how you freaking say it, but to get the new range boots, you have to invest 20 mil as it is right now to get Ranger boots to add. Does that mean the gem is going to be worthless because you have to invest so much? Does it mean that the gem will be much more valuable, or the same, on par? I don't know.
Now, maybe I don't understand it, but is there one gem that you can use on each type?
No,
like
there's
specific-
an
or
individual gem.
There is
So-
3 individual
Yeah.
ones. So
Yeah.
okay, so if I had to guess, I would say that melee would probably be more expensive just
Yeah.
because it's more widely used. But with how many people use range, especially with like the blowpipe and stuff nowadays, I think range will definitely be up there. And then
Yeah.
mage, depending if they all have the exact same drop rate and they end
ought
up
to. That's
they
the
end
way
up
they would.
coming into the game pretty evenly. I'd say Mage will probably keep up with them just because there is a pretty high demand for Infinity as well for things like, Barrows and pretty much anything that you use Mage. Most people tend to use Infinity boots for.
Yeah, and
So-
interestingly enough, the thing that like makes this so strange is that the thing that has the most demand, the melee boots, has the cheapest boot to like add on. Then
Yeah.
Infinity boots are used next most. They're like 700, 800K last
Yeah.
I checked. I don't know.
Because it is also, like Keeper said, the most widely used boot, but that also makes it the most common too.
Yeah.
Just 'cause,
Well,
many
the
people use
boot
it.
itself will stay cheap, but the gem for the boot, because it's, I think, more widely used,
Ought to be
will be a
cheap,
higher
right.
demand for that specific gem, and especially earlier on.
Yeah.
Yeah, earlier
Only
on,
a
I'd say
handful
so.
of people bringing them in, they'll probably be pretty up there in demand, I think.
I'd have to disagree with you though on that. I think it'll correlate and be one of the cheapest of the 3 options. That's my prediction.
Well,
Probably at first it'll be in most demand, but I think over time it'll taper.
It should be interesting, whatever happens, because they could be as rare as when we got Glacor boots. Glacor boots ended up being, incredibly high valued, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like a redo of how the game kind of took that on. We started off with like boots that were like 10 mil each, and I kind of expected them to fall. They were boots, for Christ's sake. But then you ended up with like Glavens and Ragefires being like 23 and 8 mil respectively, and then Steadfasts were 50. So you never
And
know.
which ones were Steadfast?
Steadfasts were the melee.
The melee.
Glavens were the range, and then oddly enough, at the time, Ragefires ended up being the cheapest, and I'm honestly not sure why. I think it was how they broke down stat-wise. I honestly don't know, but
Now, do we know if, like, let's say, for instance, if you die with these boots with the gem on it, are they going to be untradeable in their current form? So
I
will you
would
automatically
assume-
save them?
I would assume it's going to act like Zulrah stuff. So if you decide to create whatever it is, you create it, but the raw material can be traded as well, even though there's not charges. So I would assume you can trade, and there's no degrading. These boots don't degrade. So I'm assuming you can trade the boots as well as trade the gems
Are
themselves.
you unable to break the gem off and resell the gem later? Like, if you want to revert it
That
back
I
to
don't
the...
know.
Okay.
And I don't know.
I
if
would be
Jagex
surprised if
said
they didn't
anything
have
about
that
it.
option. They've been adding that to just about everything. I'd be
Right.
surprised they didn't have an option to remove the gem and probably disintegrated or something.
Now, can you remove like a magic fang? Like, I've never tried these things.
You can, yeah.
You can remove the magic fang.
Yeah,
you can remove
which is why the magic fang is so shit, because there's no circumstance where you're using a trident and a staff of the dead at the same time. So if you just have a fang, you can just toss it back and forth. It doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
That's not the only reason chat don't get huffy with me. But,
I would actually like to see it to where they're tradable in their current form with the gem attached. That way, when you die, you lose them versus
right.
It just, especially with the death mechanics now, where all untradables just go right back in your inventory with no loss whatsoever, which will hopefully in turn keep some of them out of the game. I know right now with the death mechanics, it won't really lose many because you have an hour to get back, but eventually, hopefully, we'll get out of the 1 hour death mechanics and things will leave the game again. And at this point, we'll keep the price of those things up.
It is kind of sad because Jagex has acknowledged that, like, here's when that will stop, and it's just when the DDoSing stops. So, moving on to DDoSing, unfortunately, those of you who are super excited to witness the 5v5 tournament, which was supposed to start today, Jagex was live streaming. Yes! Those of you not watching, Keith has just donned the famous tinfoil hat, the namesake of our first episode. Jagex was DDoS this morning while trying to broadcast the 5v5 tournament. And this is a tournament that's got a big cash prize. There's a bunch of famous, clans and like streamers and stuff involved. And it was DDoS. The broadcast was DDoS. So they've postponed it. Now, obviously, I mean, from my perspective, it was kind of like, yeah, of course. Like, you'd think it wasn't going to happen.
And
like,
my understanding was it got DDoS right at the very start, right?
Oh, yeah. As soon as it's like, you're done. Nope. Like, they didn't even get a chance to start going. So I wasn't surprised. I'm surprised that Jagex maybe was surprised. I don't know. It's just sad, where we're at.
It's a lose-lose situation all around. I mean, Jagex is a little bit to blame, but there's really no easy way to deal with this. And they put a lot of effort into this. They didn't want it to fail.
I mean, if you've seen the work that like all the JMods have done on like creating a spectator client, and I mean, give credit where credit is due. Jagex has done a fantastic job in making and preparing this tournament. So kudos to that. But you're still hostage to scumbags on the internet. Which
I've been sitting here like all day thinking about it, and I really am at a loss of words as to what they thought was going to happen, because I've seen things on, I don't know if you guys follow Reddit, but I've been watching Reddit, and this may be complete bullshit, but the people that go on the Reddit have been saying for 2 weeks in a row, we're going to DDoS you. Like, they call them out in the threads about the tournament. We are going to DDoS you the entire time during this tournament. It will not happen. Like, it's been said many times on the Reddit, and I don't know if they just were calling their bluff or if they thought they had a system, but from what I understand, it wasn't even the servers going down. It was just their Twitch being DDoS, which we've seen a million. How many times now have they been at Matt K's house?
Yeah,
or Mod
the house
house
streams for the
Let's be honest, they're not doing it because that cramped ass little couch is comfortable. They're doing it because that's how they can do the Q&A without being DDoSed. So I don't know if they just thought they had a trick up their sleeve and it failed, or if they just were hoping. Like, I would like to know what their thought process was.
The conspiracy theory out there is that they did initially have a private world with a private IP for this event, and then somehow it got leaked, like insider trading type deal. That's what the conspiracy is going around right now.
Yeah,
it was confirmed. It was Skill Specs. If they hadn't invited Skill Specs, we would have had the tournament.
Damn it, Jay. Well, it's interesting because it's not only the it could have gotten to the point where if Jagex was somehow protected, one of the teams, I think it was Skidler. Again, I'm not like super into the information, but he's on a team, I think, with Bodhi and a couple other streamers. He was doxxed, so and I learned this. I thought it was just that was a term for DDoS, and I didn't know what we were talking about. But it's apparently just like all his information was leaked, and all the people like connected to him in the tournament had their IPs leaked. So theoretically, them in the middle of a fight could have just lights out suddenly because they get DDoS. So again, the whole thing was doomed from the start. I don't know what Jagex was expecting. Maybe they thought they were okay. I don't know. Maybe they thought
they were in a position where it was either cancel the tournament in fear of the DDoSers and they win, or go through with the tournament and they take it down and they win. It's a lose-lose situation for Jagex.
At the end of all of this, like, I'm siding with Jagex so much more lately, especially the last 6 months or so, because like I'm just putting myself in Matt K's shoes and everyone else, Ronan, everyone that was hyping it, getting the teams together, organizing everything. Like, they wanted a fun day, a successful stream, good advertising. We're on the front page of Twitch. RuneScape, there's going to be those people that are just like, oh, it's just RuneScape. But there's also going to be people that see it and like, ah, shit, RuneScape, I haven't played that in forever. They got free to play now? I'm going to go check it out. Like, it was good for the game. And, it could have been just a small handful of people completely ruin it for thousands of people. And it's just, I feel bad for them at this point. It's just a shame that people literally have nothing better to do than to try and ruin experiences for other people. Like, that's the epitome of their good day. And
the screenshot that I saw when it got hit off had like 21,000 plus viewers. Like,
that was right at the beginning too. Like, imagine if that had ran for 7 hours they were trying to go for, 8 hours.
Yeah.
Like, near the end, like, that would have been a pretty big deal on Twitch.
Yeah, that'd be more than StarCraft 2 tournaments get these days,
yeah, and
which would make me happy and sad at the same time.
It brings up a really good point, which is maybe RuneScape esports is something Jagex should really think about, especially.
But how can they? Like, imagine trying to do a weekly thing like this.
Yeah, obviously they can't host it yet, but if you get that much attention from teams of 5 going at it.
But do you think it was? Do you think it's worth doing like a weekly or even a monthly thing, or do you think it was just the first time they'd ever tried? I think it was so hyped because of it being the first time ever. Really?
Certainly, that's and the presence from big names certainly helps. But even if, to put it in perspective, Smite raised $2 million for their first ever big tournament, which was the 3rd biggest prize in esports history. Nowadays, when they run, just weekly, Smite Pro League stuff. They're probably around like 5,000 to 10,000 viewers, probably a little less. If RuneScape is pulling that many for esports stuff, and RuneScape is higher up in the directory usually than Smite is, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't try it, because it's great promotion for the game. It makes your game show up higher in the Twitch directory, which certainly can't hurt. I don't know. It's something to think about.
I think as long as they can direct resources to it that aren't currently involved with things, devs that aren't making things, devs that aren't already using their time like Ronan for community projects, then I'd be for it. But I don't want to see those guys.
If you ask the community, Ronan and Chris have nothing to do ever, and they have tons of free time. So,
and the other side of that is now that they know that the appeal is out there, and then they can pull in these numbers, maybe they'll put a little bit more thought into planning the next one and make it a little bit more secure. So hopefully it inspires them to try again and not just quit.
I'd like to think they will, but man, what are they going to like? At this point, I'm waiting for them to post something like in the next week or so, saying we're going to try again, or we just don't have the ability to do this. Like, when are they going to, or what do you think they're going to actually come out with? Do you think they're going to try again, or do you think that it's just not a possible thing at this point? Because it will happen again if they don't change anything the second time.
Yep.
So.
I don't know.
I'm 50-50 on it. I honestly could see them just giving up on this one. Just saying.
Again, it's a lose-lose situation for Jagex, it seems.
Yeah. All right, on to something more musical. That's a horrible transition. The Music Cape is about to be in our arms on screen for at least my folks, and should be Keeps folks as well. Obviously, in the description of SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you're at, there should be this picture. You're looking at the 2 designs that Mod Ghost, this was Mod Ghost project. We got 2 designers at Jagex, in case you didn't know, Ghost and Alfred. Up there are the 2 original designs, the designs that he reached out for opinions on Twitter. This has all been decided, though. We're getting the option number 1, the one with the harp, the one that has the, I guess that represents the in-game model. The interesting thing, the thing we're going to talk about the Music Cape is, 1, the Music Cape is out, that's cool. But number 2, how they're actually ending up treating the Music Cape. It seemed like Ghost had actually a lot of input on how this was going to go. I don't know if he was just communicating his interest, but in the past when the designers have designed things like Ghost with the mutagens, he said a lot of things that ended up not being final, what actually ended up in the game. But it seems like he's had a lot of input, and it's his project. So we're getting a Music Cape in-game that requires you get all the tracks except for holiday tracks. So if you unlock every single song that's not a holiday track, boom, you get yourself a Music Cape. Cool. And by the way, that does include a Champions Guild, so you need to get a Champion Scroll. So those of you who are like trying to exactly
get to Lumbridge, get your cannon.
The best place, and you're welcome in advance. The best way to do that is to head into the Fishing Guild. Next to the Fishing Guild, there's that like little dungeon. Take a cannon down there. It's like 1k goblins per hour. It's like 1 in 5k, so it's certainly better than the other options. It's the safest, probably the easiest way to get it. Anyway, a trimmed version of the Music Cape is going to be available if you can manage, and this is pretty crazy, if you can manage the Achievement Diary Cape and the Quest Cape. And that is no small list of requirements. I think the trim gives it black trim. So there's a lot of, there's a bit of controversy around it. It's like, oh, this is too hard, I won't ever be able to get a trim Music Cape. You would also need all the holiday tracks, for the record. But I like the direction. It's one of those, it's not bringing any like next tier gear into the game, but it's one of those long-term kind of goals people can reach for, which as long as it doesn't affect meta gear, I am always on board with. But obviously, Joey, what do you
I was always a big advocate for the Music Cape. When I first started playing this game, I was like, there should be a reward for unlocking every single song in this game. And I had several friends who would go out of their way to unlock as much music as they possibly could. And I was like, why is there no reward for this? A Music Cape should exist, and just have it trimmed with the Quest Cape. And now if there's Achievement Capes, have it trimmed with that. Like, it always made sense to me that it should be in the game, and I'm really happy they're introducing it. It looks awesome. I love the designs.
Oh, it's great. I can say, like, I'm really glad they didn't end up with the cleft. Stick to the game. The harp symbol is there for a reason. It represents the music in the game. Throw it on there.
I am thoroughly excited for it, though.
The only thing I would change with it is I like that they have these high-end tier version of it with the achievement and quest, but I would like to have seen 3 tiers myself. One for the quest that would have trimmed it one way, and one that would have trimmed it for the quest and achievement, and then one that would have trimmed it just for having the achievement. Like different tiers depending on what you had, and they could have had different colors, and it would give people a little more variety, and they don't have to do the achievements if they want something more unique, or they don't have to do the quest if they didn't want that one. Like, it would just more variety, and it's not as unreachable for some players, but for the ones that do have that ability, they get something more unique, maybe a better color, or even something that, there's a lot of options they could have done with it, but it would have been cool to break it down in more tiers, I guess.
Then I think things start to get a little bit too much to keep track of. If you have 3 or 4 different options of trim you can get on this Music Cape for different things, then it becomes a little bit confusing, I think.
Yeah, I think the one issue I think most people have is that the Music Cape theoretically is, having a Quest Cape is certainly part of it. I don't think it's possible to have a Music Cape without a Quest Cape. That may be wrong, but maybe you can get a quest up to completion and not finish it, because there's certain specific areas you'd have to be. But I think the main issue people have is Achievement Diary Cape is a hell of a cape. I mean, it's impressive. I'm always shot, I always have a lot of respect for the guys who can grind that much. So it's a little bit of a crazy step forward for me. It's kind of like, okay, you got your Music Cape. It's kind of like on par with the Quest Cape in terms of, effort. And then suddenly you're this big step up to Achievement Diary Cape. So
that is a huge step up, by the way. Yeah,
it's music, and then you go with Achievement Diary. So I don't know, necessarily if that's the best way of doing it. I think it's just the most convenient and ideal for RuneScape. If we had, like Joey and Kiefer both saying, if there's better steps in between, maybe that's an option. But I think they went with the way of making it, this is an accomplishment.
Yeah, and that's one of the few things that the game lacks at this point is accomplishments. A lot of things have become very stagnant and easy to obtain, especially with AFK methods on certain things, that it's finally cool to see something that will take time. Will take the players that have the time, or if they don't have the time that some players have, it'll just take them a lot longer to achieve, but it gives some people a really distant goal, which will keep people playing for longer, for sure. Which
is nice, and we're also, theoretically, the Max Cape, if the JMods keep their word on it, just to touch on that, should be out relatively soon. We got 100 max players, and that's kind of when I think whoever talked about it, Matt K, whichever JMod it was, that was the bar. So theoretically, a Max Cape ought to be coming into the game soonish. Which
I'm on the same page on that cape as I was about the Music Cape. I always thought that it should be in the game, and I feel like the game needs more just purely aesthetic, cosmetic things that show achievement.
Yeah. Then what do you guys think about? And this is going to be a little controversial, but 120 capes. Something that gives people a very far extended goal to look towards.
Fine. Bring it on.
Something that isn't economy affecting. It's just a visual thing.
Yep, do it.
But something to show off, and it keeps people playing for an even longer time. Something to look forward to past 99. Because let's be honest, some 99s are extremely quick to get to. Having something to keep going for, I think would be all right as
it.
long as it doesn't have an economy effect.
I quit before, like I quit pre-EOC, like right around the time when that was released, and then came back 3 or 4 years later. So I kind of missed that whole gap where there was the 120 capes and everything. The number 120 just never made any sense to me. What the significance of that number is. Like, if you're going to go to that,
I think it was only because of Dungeoneering. Like, Dungeoneering was the first skill to be a 120 level cap, so that's probably where that initially came in. I mean, we could alter it to a 200 mil cape, something even ridiculously long term.
XP wise, it doesn't. There's no fundamental sense behind it. It's like 107 mil somewhere. It's just kind of, hey, Dungeoneering, we've come up with this skill that we can really stretch out and have it span. You know, they had so much content for it. I think it was like, let's just make it, you know, have 120, and it was fast enough that, you know, Dungeoneering to 120 is, I don't know, you know, I'm talking out my ass, but it's probably about as long as a tougher 99 in RS3. So it was just kind of like, hey, we have this 120 Dungeoneering cape, you know, maybe we should let people get that in their skills.
I say no to 120 capes. And if they're going to do anything like that, just make 200 mil capes.
I'd vote for it. I mean, if it's not a lot of time to reskin some capes and to give people something further to look down the road to, I don't know that I would ever get 200 mil.
That upper echelon there. That you know,
and if you want to even make it like better, at least for me, you know, even do like a halfway, like 100 mil, 200, you know, have a tiered.
But then we get back kind of in the discussion with the case we're just talking about having different tiers and
100 mil could, like, confusion. I can feasibly see myself getting 100 mil in a skill, 200 mil.
I'm almost at 45 mil ranged and cannoning Cave Horrors for 1.5 years plus some Slayer got me to that. So like that's not something you're either going to get fast or you're going to spend a lot of money to do so. So it's nice having something to look forward past 13 million experience for sure.
Yeah, I personally, my opinion is 200 mil capes or
I'd be cool with that. I ultimately would like to get 200 mil range. That's one of my long-term goals with my account. So it would be nice to have a reason to get there other than because it's the cap. You know what I mean? Because I'll stop getting experience added to it at that point. So let's I think we can get something started on that maybe one day. It'd be kind of cool.
All right, quickly before we move on to more RS stuff, if you don't like the D&D talk, vamos. It's going to happen for a little bit. Just skip forward. I promise it'll be gone. That's another one of the big parts of input we got. But it's going to happen, especially since we have Joey here. D&D last week was amazing. I think, I mean, it's easy for me to say it was the best week. I've only been here 3 weeks, but I think Keith and Joey both share that same sentiment. After 18 weeks it is now. It was an amazing session. Joey, please talk about Mr. Dungeon Master.
Well, it's awesome because there have probably been about 7 or 8 different sessions where each one afterwards everyone's like, that was the best session so far. that was amazing. It was incredible. Like, so it's really cool to see it come together and have that impact every single week. You know, there's always something that tops the previous week and always something new and interesting that happens. And so last week everyone was, you know, really good. They played their characters for the most part really, really, really well, and that gives me, the Dungeon Master, a lot more feeling and role play to utilize. It makes the gameplay experience just a lot more enjoyable and richer for everyone involved, not just the players, the viewers as well. Because the more you guys are into it, the more engaging everything is.
Can you go a little bit into, for those who may have missed it or want to know what happened, just talk a little bit about what went down?
Basically, Paul's character, Pearl Baggins, his inner demon that was written into his backstory.
My inner demons.
Was finally, I guess, released would be an appropriate term. Was now released and was confronted.
Can you talk about how surprised you were that happened? Because the way Keith and I went about that, and especially the way Keith just like took the reins and was just like, let's just punch him.
Oh,
you seemed shocked.
I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't know that, you know, he would commit as well as he did, and that's what surprised me. Okay. You know, like hearing the voice and everything come together, because we had talked about it beforehand, but I had no idea he was going to role play it as well as he did, and that's what surprised me.
I'll be honest, like when I mentioned the fact that Omen had died, and Omen was part of the Blood Pact, and that was going to cause an issue with Pearl, like I never thought for a split second that he was going to be taken over. Like I was like, he might get confused, he might lose memory, he might get like mad about shit and start trying to attack people, but I never thought for a second that he would just be overtaken entirely. So when it happened, I was just like, oh god, like this is not, I wasn't prepared for this. Like,
it was awesome.
As my character, and you know, my character and Paul have not seen eye to eye well at all, but I've taken this advantage or this opportunity to try and save Paul. But like my mission right now is to get this out of Paul. Like if it's not for good, at least to get Paul back, because Paul's like he's like not there anymore. And
yeah, and with this, you know, this constant underlying variable that's always there that could fuck you guys over. It probably would be best, you know, to get it out of the way.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of like threatening the existence of like the world a little bit. So, demons from the ninth circle of hell, you know.
Yeah, but this is a perfect example of how, you know, like a rich, detailed backstory can really improve the game. Because
he makes me like ashamed of mine because he has so much depth to
That's
his.
what you get for having chat make your backstory.
Yes.
I let Twitch chat straw poll mine, and we ended up basically hunting for third age in D&D, which I love, and I love the concept, but it's so hard to like try and implement that.
Keep in mind, you can add more to your backstory.
Yeah, I'm just not creative enough to,
which is something
to go
that
to that kind of a level. I would like to, but I don't know how the hell.
Well, I'm probably going to force you to, because you know how I brought up the idea of multi-classing to you guys after 5th level. If you're going to multi-class in something, it has to make sense with your character, and you're probably going to make it a requirement that you each add something onto your backstory. If it doesn't already exist, that makes sense, and also gives more detail to it. So,
in all honesty, and this is pretty meta, I don't have much intention on multi-classing. I know there's a lot of pros and cons to doing it. But I really just like the direction that the character goes with, especially with the spell selection stuff, and I think to keep the confusion down for me, just going straight cleric the entire way will really be more beneficial to me. So
yeah, and that's just fine. But if someone does decide to multi-class, and I'm probably going to at some point force you into adding a little bit more detail into your backstory, because
after watching Paul's, I definitely want to because I am embarrassed.
Everyone seems to be
Twitch
stepping their
chat.
game up and all that. So.
It's not my fault. Paul's a nerd.
Hey, I mean, it certainly brought out the best in, you know, the whole campaign. I mean, to be fair, it worked out really
And like
well.
Joey said, every other week we sit there and like, whoa, that was the best one yet.
That was so great, yeah.
They literally do just keep getting better and better, and especially with this last week was on so many different levels of just things happening and the way that everyone played their characters, and just some of the funny things like Paul's just one after another saving throws. And
oh my god!
Fuck off.
It was just, that was the best session we've had.
No, it really, like, even the roles came to like make that situation really like just great. I mean,
it could have been so much just simpler if
yeah,
you had just
like, okay, you grab Pearl.
And
Demon
the whole
Man
10 minutes
has
with
been
the Zone of Truth stacking on top of his madness
Right.
was fantastic. So.
Right. Keith, I'm going to make you really upset, and I'm going to ask you a question at the same time. Hopefully.
Okay.
What do you wish you could have asked the demon? And for me, a couple things have come up. Number one, why did he say Felonwood? Because that's a completely different place from the place he said he was going to attack. Joey, forgive me. What is the G, Southwest G place?
Well, Glimmer is
Glimmer.
where his hometown is. That's to the southwest.
But he's been very clear, like, Demon Guy wants to go there. But when he was floating and being a freaking creepy exorcist person, he's like, Felonwood. And we didn't even ask about it at all.
I forgot all about it.
Right.
So
And the other thing that I, again, really wish we had asked, but, you know, like, we got so wrapped up in it, Arcane Powder, we didn't touch at all on, hey, what's the deal with you and the powder? Like, there was nothing. So
I'm so confused by that, because when someone put it in his nose, he was like, oh, get it away, right? Like, didn't want it. And then when he was confronted with the powder and then poured it out, he was like, no, don't do that, which I think was just him bullshitting, basically. Like, he was trying to play mind games, wanted them to do it. So when he did it, like, he was happy blowing it up. Like, I don't think that, me personally, I didn't think that he actually cared if he dropped it.
It seemed like it was halfway between, like, oh, I need to act like Pearl, but at the same time, I'm the demon who doesn't like it, kind of thing.
I think so.
So
yeah.
it definitely was confusing, and I wish we had asked, but, you know, we didn't.
I still can Zone of Truth another time. Just say.
It's true. But now you see, now I've ruined it because metagame.
Yeah, for sure.
He was knocked unconscious also too, and hogtied. That was
that was great. The way Keith, like, backed up. Like, I watched the video again because it's amazing. And if you watch the D&D session live, you should just go back and watch it again, because even Keith, the moment that you ask Joey, is the torch lit? I completely missed that the first time around. And then watching it again, you preemptively are like, thinking in your head, you can see the wheels turning. I'm gonna fucking burn the scroll thing. Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
If it had any benefit to Pearl's character, if it was like an attack spell or if it was a ritual or anything, my intention was just to get rid of it.
Yeah.
He was so adamant about finding out what it was that if we didn't discover exactly what it was and we knew that it was no harm to us, I was just getting it out of the equation 100%. So there was no potential for it coming back to hurt us later on. So as soon as I realized that we weren't going to find out what it was, I could have taken it to the town and tried and got it read, but I was like, at this point, I'm not even going to bother. I'm not going to let him steal it from me while I'm asleep. Or, like, it's just, I'm getting it out of the game. Like,
yeah, that was a decision I did not anticipate.
I think that's my favorite, is when Joey's surprised. It's like,
oh yeah, like I'm kind of curious now what exactly it was, because Joey seemed almost kind of like disappointed. That
I wouldn't say disappointed, just surprised.
Like he wanted it to be used at some point. Like that was the vibe I got. Was he was just kind of like, oh, damn! Like I put that in there, and that was going to be very useful for something later on. But
well, I don't even know if at that point I fully understood what exactly the significance of that paper was. But at the time, I was like, oh shit. This is a very rash, quick decision that I was not anticipating. Let's see what happens.
Curse of the DM. You might design this like whole backstory, and then they go a different way down the road. Yeah. I guess that's just kind of, you know.
Yeah, that's how it goes. There's no amount of preparation on my end that can prepare for every outcome.
Yep.
Being a DM, you have to be able to improvise. You're never going to go the exact path you set out, which is fine. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's got to be fun designing that by itself, you know?
Oh, yeah. And it's not like it can't be used at a later date or incorporated somewhere, but yeah. I have, 70, 80 page Google Docs of just notes and stuff. Tons of story threads that just were never pursued.
I mean, fundamentally, you gotta prepare for everything. So as soon, if the detail of how big this rock over here is might come into play, it might not. So you've got this whole world. I mean, it's impressive for those of you who, I know this is, we mostly talk about RuneScape, but it is just gaming. What Joey's doing is really impressive, and it's exciting to be a part of.
It's a shame that more people don't really try to understand things like D&D, because it is like one of the oldest tabletop RPGs out there, and as a gamer,
Vin Diesel plays D&D. Damn it! Like, come on.
He's actually been playing it for a long time too, like 20 plus years or some crazy shit, from what I understand. Like, and it's just people they don't even try. You know what I mean? Like, and the guys that do, and the guys that come back and watch it every Tuesday, like, they get so much good feedback from it, And then there's the guys that just think they're funny. That are like, oh, gay. Like, you haven't even tried.
When are you going back to RS?
If anything, I'm disappointed for you, not in you, but for you, because you call yourself a gamer, but you don't even try to understand something that may be out of your league or out of your your horizon. Paradigm is very. Is very small. You need to open it.
Certainly something we can talk about in a future podcast, just how negative reception of other games by RuneScapers is, because it's it's a thing. Keith and I, as and Joey, I don't know if you've tried streaming other games, but the reception is not warm when you go do something else. So,
and it works vice versa too, because think about it. Like, what do people say when Twitch is on, like, RuneScape's on the front page of Twitch? Like,
fuck
people
RuneScape.
RuneScape. I played that shit when I was 12. Fuck, gay. Like, that's all. That's what the Reddit community thinks of us, and you guys do the same thing to any other game. Like,
you wonder why, right?
Act like they're the assholes when they do it to us. It's a pretty shitty way to look at gaming as a whole, because
but I truly believe that D&D is something that can appeal to anyone and everyone. If
everyone's creative, for sure. I mean, anyone can play D&D. Or
if the players and the DM and the story are engaging enough, then I truly believe it's a game that does have mass appeal. And shows like Critical Role and MEJP's channel and stuff prove that. They can pull 8,000 plus viewers with D&D and just have really engaging stories that no matter what, even if you've never played before and don't really have any interest in tabletop RPGs, it's like watching a TV show. So I just think it's something that if you give it a chance, anybody can get into.
And that's how I feel about our campaign. Like I mentioned earlier, it felt like the season finale of a TV show, and then getting hyped for the next week's session. Like it's like that for me every week. Like I feel like it's a TV show that we are creating, and it's a lot of fun, man. I'm loving it.
All right, moving on. We are whisking along quite quickly here. So Joey is here, obviously, because we're very involved with Joey. But Joey feels very strongly about polls, and that's something I have covered a lot on my channel. We talk about them a lot. I mean, let's be real. It's something that it's very relevant to 07. And so we're going to take some time, probably the majority of the rest of the podcast, judging from where we're at on time here, talking about the polling system. It's broken. You know, obviously, Joey, I'll let you. You know, this is kind of your segment. So, what do you feel? What's going on with you in polls?
The last poll I voted in was the Grand Exchange poll. I voted yes for it. But my opinion since that poll is fuck the polls. Until they give an option to abstain from voting for certain things, then I'm not going to bother voting.
But Joey, the polls had a vote on whether there should be an abstain option.
Which is dumb. Which is an incredibly dumb thing to poll. My personal opinion is that they need to grow some cojones and not poll everything, but they've set a pretty dangerous precedent with polling everything. But yeah, I've played RuneScape for over 10 years, and a combat account I have now that I've been playing on for about 3 months is my first time ever experiencing anything combat related. So there are so many different polls and stuff where I'm just like, oh, I would like to vote in this, but there's these 6 or 7 other things that I just don't think I have enough knowledge on to have my vote actually mean something.
Right.
So I don't want to vote. Yep. So it's either, don't vote on anything or vote on things I don't know enough about. So until they give me the abstain option, why bother? Fuck the polls. I hadn't even looked at them in months.
The great thing about what you do is you acknowledge it. The problem is, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's a huge amount of people who open those polls and just, I don't know anything about this.
No.
They just pick an option.
Oh, this one has something I know about.
Yes. It says something that it's the immediate gut reaction, and if you're gonna base what you're voting on with a gut reaction, at the very least, Jagex needs to rewrite how they do these polls. They tried this whole, put more information in the polls with getting it on the website and in game. We've got the, they have pictures sometimes. They've opened it up to a lot of things, but when, and this is my best example, when they were thinking about coming out with the Amulet of Smiting, which you're like, Amulet of what? Yeah, exactly. Poll question: would you like to see the Amulet of Smiting? Click this picture. It's a picture of the damn thing. I learned nothing other than it looks exactly like I expected. It looks like the Smite Prayer. Whoopee. So if you don't know what that is, you're just going to go, oh, I bet this amulet has something to do with Prayer Drain. No, I don't think that should be in the game. Or, yeah, that sounds cool. Yes, you link the dev blogs. Yes, you do all that background information, but your average RuneScape player is not dedicated enough to vote for the game after reading 2 pages of dev blog. It's just never going to happen.
And yeah, it can be both ways too. You can either vote negatively on everything or positively on everything, but that's not a good way to go about voting. You should vote, whichever way you feel, and being forced to vote a particular way just so you can vote in the other options is stupid to me.
Now, I could beat that dead horse that Joey just said a million times over. 100% agree. The fact that we can't just say, I don't want to tell you an opinion or I don't have an opinion is the dumbest thing to me ever. It doesn't make any sense. How it's gone on this long is just comical at this point. Like, it's just like at this point, how can they even justify? Like,
you do wonder if Jagex thinks the players will be like, no, how dare you put an abstain option? Like, I don't.
Yeah, like, how dare you acknowledge the fact that I might not know how I want to answer this? Like, the fact that that was even polled is a joke in itself. Yes. But here's one of my big problems too: is what they're polling, not just the fact that they're polling, and making you answer, but things like quality of life updates. And there's only one argument people have had towards it is it may take dev time away from other things that we don't want it going towards. My example I love to use is, do you need more, or do you want more bank space? They polled this literally a week after Elite Clues came out, and every other 3 of the clue tiers had a bunch of new items added in. I think there was, I don't have the exact number, anywhere between 80 to 120 new items came into the game just from this update alone. And then they ask us, do you want more bank space? That's a question to me that should never have been polled. And things similar to that, this is where Jagex just takes the chance to be the company that makes the game, that makes good decisions for what's smart for the game, and stops asking us stupid questions, the things that we don't need to waste our time on answering, and that don't have the chance to even fail. Whether or not they have any possible way that the player base would ever vote no against it, stop giving anyone the chance to take things out of the game that are necessary at this point. And
then it takes months to get these small little quality of life things into the game that didn't really need to be voted on in the first place. And it can be frustrating. Definitely.
And there's a fine line between quality of life and things that affect the economy and stuff, and it's very easy to distinguish what a quality of life update is. Something that is either like an overlay based thing,
amen, brother,
that is something that does not affect items, currency, prices, or anything else, something that is just useful, that makes something simpler and more user-friendly, they need to decide which ones they feel are good for the game and put them in. Stop asking us. Like the poll system, that's one of my biggest. And on top of the fact that they won't let us just say, "I don't know." Also, like that's my second big problem with it, and that they're never going to stop because they've gotten into this phase where they tiptoe everywhere around us, that they're so afraid to piss off the vocal community. And it might not even be the majority of players. It might just be 500 people on Reddit just flooding Reddit with all this shit, and then you've got 43,000 players that are like, I don't even care, but they don't hear those players because those are the guys that aren't sitting there flaming the entire time.
Like I said, they set themselves a very dangerous precedent with this whole having to vote on everything, because now they've gotten to a point where if they don't post something they put into the game, people riot.
And I'm with you because I don't vote on anything unless it's a one-question poll. If there's multiple questions on that poll and there's something on there I don't want to give an answer to or don't have enough info, I just don't vote. But like, for instance, Deadman was a one-question poll. If I had an opinion on it, I voted. Stuff like that is simple enough, but most, if not 99% of the polls aren't like that. Most of them have a flood of questions, and
the name is much more deceiving than what the poll contains. It goes through tons and tons of other stuff, and I mean, it's part of the reason I have that little series on my YouTube channel of poll rundown. I walk through the polls. Here's what I'm voting on. Here's a little information if you didn't know anything about it. Like, it's quick. It hopefully educates people at least a little bit. Problem is, it's very hard for me to be unbiased. So you do get my opinion, and obviously some people go, "Hey, just trying to get me to vote the way you want to." I try my best not to do that, but I mean, Jagex needs to do something like that, and it honestly, it's kind of a matter of where do you start with it being broken. I mean, you could talk about every single aspect, from them not including enough information to, and they've set a precedent of, like you both have said, of, Jagex is done with being blamed for updates, so now it's get mad at your fellow player for not voting the way you wanted them to. And certainly, Joey, you stopped voting after the GE. I mean, if you looked at the toxicity that was brought about through the GE poll, I mean, that's...
during that whole polling process, I refused to say what my opinion was on stream. I would be like, nope, I'm sorry, it's too fucking controversial for no reason. And after the fact, I was like, yeah, I voted yes for it. But no, at the time, it was, it was a very, very controversial subject.
And even now, there's things like that with, like, Deadman. People ask me constantly, what are your thoughts on Deadman? And I'm hesitant. Like, I want to talk about it, but I feel like people can't be civil to an extent. Like, you can't ask my opinion and then me tell you, and then just be like, oh, okay, thanks for your opinion. You're wrong because of this. Like, it has to turn into you convince me that I'm wrong, and I convince you that you're wrong, and it never works well anymore. Like, I love debates as much as the next person if it can be done correctly, but the internet can't debate correctly, except for last night. Last night we talked about all kinds of things that we're talking about right now, Deadman and polls and stuff like that. And it was I ended up being on until 6 a.m. because I was enjoying it so much, because no one was flaming. There's
light at the end of the tunnel sometimes, and definitely with the GE for me, as someone who was like very outspoken about like why I'm voting no, but at the end of it kind of just went about going, okay, let's everybody chill. Let's make my chat now if you want to discuss it, you're more than welcome to. If you get ridiculous, stop it. And I kind of became a moderator of, this is what you're wrong about. I would correct people if they needed correcting, stuff like that. But I think the main problem, back to toxicity, the video I made, the poll rundown episode I made of the GE poll, the comments, the things that were communicated to me that would be done to my body, my anus, I mean, it was awful. And
don't tease me with a good time.
It's the comment section I go back to when people ask me, or like it ever is brought up with, like, company I can swear at, like, hey, what's it like? And well, this is like how bad it gets sometimes, and it's like, you fucking snail, I'll fucking find your mother, and like,
allow me to tinfoil for a second. I have a question for you. What do you think if Bodhi had posted the exact same video, written the exact same way, and worded the exact same way? Do you think it would have received the same negative?
Yes and no, because obviously Bodhi is not, he's the more popular. If you were to do a poll of like approval rating, he'd be higher. But you'd still have people who like that. The people who don't give a shit would be mad, and is that a problem that we're treated differently? Not really. I understand it, but the fact that those people exist at all is an issue. And again, it goes back to what we talked about last week, that video I made on just be nicer to everybody, and the comment section is toxic as hell.
Yeah, I saw that actually. I went back and looked into the YouTube video.
Okay.
Like, the video is literally just like, we can do better. Like, we
as a community, be nicer.
Yeah,
Fuck you, Barrows boy. You fucking
if we
piece
aren't
of shit.
dicks, people get along, people have more fun, players enjoy the game more. Why do we constantly feel the need to try and belittle people and talk shit for no given reason whatsoever other than because you're an asshole? And then the chat is just like, fuck you, I hope you die and get cancer. Like, it was just, it's just...
A great example of that is, the hatred between RS3 and old school.
Oh, absolutely. Like, we play the same game, it's just different servers. Like,
we all grew up playing the same game that, we might play different versions of now, but just because it's a different game doesn't mean that it's bad. They just have different appeals, both of them. And we shouldn't be so toxic towards people who play different versions.
Poking fun. Like, I love being like, I play old school, the real RuneScape, like stuff like that. Just like, but I don't hate that players play like RS3. Like the game wouldn't, like old school wouldn't be a thing if RS3 had never happened. Like we would still be playing pre-EOC. Like it's whether that's a good or bad thing in your eyes doesn't matter. Like the fact is, we all play the same game, just different ways. And it's like League and RuneScape. It feels like people just hate that other people play the other server. Like it's
I can't stand that people enjoy other things than me.
It's just AFK scape. Who do they think they are with their skill bars? Like who gives a shit? Like just play your old school. Shut up and enjoy it. Like
move past the point in your life where you care about what other people are into and just comfortable with what you enjoy. Like shit.
Yep.
Recognize that people have different tastes.
Having fun, poking fun at it's one thing, but these people like legitimately get pissed.
Yeah.
When someone says that like RS3 is better.
Yeah, and I think part of that issue and the whole online offline disconnect. Obviously online people treat each other differently. Sure, you can be a little meaner, and people like to get away with it. But there's also we're in this culture of like nothing. Nowadays I can't take anything anyone says in my chat seriously because it might be a troll, and if I fall for it, I'm an asshole. And if I think they're being sincere, I'm too sensitive. Like fuck you, Barrows boy. So it's sad that like if someone comes in my chat and wants to josh around with me, there's immediately like I'm just gonna ignore you because I don't know if you're being serious or being an asshole. It's a problem, but like there is some extent that we have to deal with it. There's another part that I think we all need to take a step in the right direction and realize where other people might be mentally or anything. Just step in someone else's shoes. If you say that nasty thing, they might take it seriously. They don't know who you are. They don't know what you're talking about. Just outwardly, just be a little nicer. Just really, it's real simple.
It makes all communities involved a lot better if everyone's just nice. Not just the RuneScape community, but just the gaming community in general.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is just people don't understand, like, because maybe what you're saying to that person, you wouldn't give a shit, but not everyone is you, And one of the big things I noticed with streams is people love to come in, say that stupid remark, talk about a physical feature,
copy pasta, something, you name it,
and think that he won't care because I don't care, but some people do care, and like this is the internet, but these are real people. Like you might think that it's just funny because it's the internet, but like some of these people take this shit out of the stream with them. Like this stays on their mind. Things like this, people, bullying is a real thing. Like you can't deny that people do things because of bullying, suicide, and stuff like that. And you might laugh and think, they shouldn't take it so serious, but some people do. And those little things you say that you think are just funny, ultimately can lead to really negative consequences for people, like whether you think that they should or shouldn't, it does.
And it doesn't have to be something as serious as life or death, but just like a new streamer trying to become a RuneScape streamer of any game, and they could be a really entertaining individual, but that they start their stream, they have 5, 6, 7 viewers or whatever, people come in and just bash them, they're like, oh well, that was a really fun time venturing out of my shell for the first time in a long time. I'm going to climb back in and never try that again. And then, you could have potentially just lost a really entertaining streamer that could have turned into something just because the chat ruined it and they took it seriously.
Yeah, it's it's a shame, but I think that is, like you said, the culture we've kind of come into, and I think that acknowledging it before it happens and understanding that that's just the way people are now is a pretty big part of it too. Because like I hate to say that, but you have to nowadays. Like, they're because people aren't going to change. Like, we have to change and accept that people aren't just going to be nicer. I think.
If I had quit the first time that someone was mean to me for or said something about my looks or anything like that, I would have been done years and years ago.
And still be at the metal factory for sure.
giving credit where credit is due. I mean, if you're listening, you're with 3 of the guys who are trying their best to, our chats compared to other RuneScape chats. I mean, you're getting probably the best of what you can if you want to actually be able to talk to the streamer and not deal with, not just flaming, but also just controlling your chat and making sure it's not just walls of spam constantly.
Yeah, toxic playground,
Certainly, those of you who like that, you found the right place, and it's worth mentioning if you like a streamer, there's nothing wrong with going out of your way and, trying to contact them, as hard as that might be for some of the bigger guys. Say that you dislike the chat, and, people listen. So giving input if you feel like, hey, Casey Tron, I want you to make your chat cleaner. That probably won't get you anywhere, but there are people who care, and if they hear your voice, might make a change.
Yeah, it's actually a conversation we had. It may have been just earlier or last night. I can't remember. I think it was earlier, but we were talking about like there are 2 types of streamers that I've noticed. Like as far as the core types of streamers, there's the guys that want communities and want to talk with people, get to know them, talk about themselves. People get to know them, and it become kind of a social network within their community that keeps people coming around, and it makes it something long term. And then there's the guys that want higher view counts, that want crazy chats going constantly, that are just flooded, and that is what they want out of their stream. They want to be successful on a number status, and that's really the RuneScape Twitch is very defined by that too. Like there's not a lot of middle ground. There's the guys that have small bases, that have really tight knit guys like mine, and there's the guys that have just crazy, just flooded spam chats, but they don't care. Like that doesn't bother them. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. They have the stream they want, And then the guys like Bodhi, like, he doesn't mind that it does that. Like that would drive me insane, but I can see why, because that's the stream he wants, And as a viewer on Twitch, you just have to decide, what do you want to be a part of?
Yeah.
Do you want to be a part of the hype? Do you want to be in that chat raising your smorks, which is not a bad thing by any means? Or you can find a place that you want to go back to on a daily basis or weekly basis.
Yeah, to clear up, like, there's nothing wrong with having those chats. It's just, it is part of, it's sometimes can be a toxicity breeding ground if you let your chat go. And part of it for me is, like, you have a responsibility to people who would be offended and could be hurt to get rid of that. So, nothing wrong with one or the other. To be fair, It's just different.
I mean, I watch Raj. Raj's stream is the epitome of the cesspool of spam. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't.
Raj, please come on the podcast one day.
But yes,
you and your cesspool.
We will get him on here eventually and talk about this. But like, that's not a bad thing. It's just, as a viewer, don't go in there and then leave and go to someone else and be like, oh, it was just all spam. Like, what it's gonna be like.
Yeah, he knows going into those Titty Tuesday streams what the chat's gonna be like. Like
so,
he anticipates.
As a viewer, you have to just decide what kind of stream do you want to watch.
And when you are in different streams, acknowledge and think to yourself what kind of stream you're in and behave accordingly. Because don't get mad at a mod when they time you out for something that's clearly over the line and that in one chat than the other.
For each.
Yeah. All right. We have a couple other things we can go over. One thing that I'm pretty excited about, the F key rebindings. Now, this has been something that has kind of been talked about for a long time since 07 came out. When we first got on 07, everyone was shocked. My F keys aren't working the way they're supposed to be. Very cool now within the game, as opposed to using some sort of third-party client or something like that. You will now have the ability to rebind your F keys to go wherever you want. So if you like the classic F1 inventory, F4 mage tab, etc., that's certainly where I'm going. You can get back to there. F5 being special tag, you can get back to there. So that's really cool. Mod Day, I believe, is working on that. Something I'm quite excited about. And it takes away from third-party clients. We're going to be able to move away from, I always like when Jagex takes, I guess, power out of third-party clients. As much as I love that, it's good that they offer it themselves because it's closer and it makes it more accessible for the entire player base.
I am looking forward to the update, just for other people. I personally won't use it too much because I just use all these,
We'll see if you two get into PKing.
keys.
This is you got it.
Oh no,
I
I did PK for several days, and I use my function keys for everything, Slayer included, not just fast action PK, anything like that. I've gotten used to the setup I have now. I'm not going to bother rebinding my keys just because I can rebind them myself with the software that comes with my keyboard. So, but I'm anticipating the update and looking forward to it for other people because it is an awesome.
That's
update.
exactly how I feel. Like this is something that we were talking about earlier with the polls. Just because I might not want it, I would still vote. Or if it's already been through, I didn't see it because I don't vote anymore. But I would still want this for other people because it's pretty simple. It shouldn't take too much as far as coding goes. Pulling that out of my ass because I don't know how coding works, but I would assume.
I believe it's something that's taken quite a while, actually.
I would assume this can't be too crazy, and if they have the people, the resources, I know there are players that want it.
Yep.
And just because I personally have gotten used to my F keys, I won't use it personally. But there are a lot of PKers that I see that complain about it not being functional for the way they want to play and stuff. So yeah, I think it's great. I think it's
amazing how quickly my brain regravitates to the old F keys when I want them to be there from the hours and hours I spent PKing. Just my pinky wants to be on F1 and my pointer wants to be on F5 for inventory and special attack. It's just how I've always played the game like that. So,
and this kind of reminds me of the prior conversation about quality of life.
Yep.
Why
this did not need a poll. For the record.
Exactly.
It was already being done, especially you could have a program.
Does the game need this as a company? Decide that. If it does, put it in. Stop polling it. It's quality. It doesn't affect anything other than player functionality and ease of access. So, did they poll this? Is that what you're saying?
They did, but didn't need it. Moving on, another interesting thing. Found this one on the Reddit as well. Again, any relevant links, check descriptions wherever you're listening at. A Zulrah bot was either discovered or found out, and I'm not sure the legitimacy of this whole thing, but I don't know who reported it, but definitely check out the Reddit thread if you can. It's an interesting read. Supposedly this guy has come clean. I don't really know the story behind it, but knowing that there's a Zulrah bot and it's been doing stuff doesn't surprise me. Certainly wasn't on my mind, but it's interesting to know that now someone's gonna do something about it. So that's good, I guess. I think the more interesting thing about this is Zulrah is a place that really needs to deal with bots because there is no supply and demand in terms of competition. If I want to go to Zulrah, I can because it's a solo boss and there's nobody going to take my spot. So having bots running at Zulrah is definitely an issue for the game and certainly something that Jagex needs to worry about.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I didn't really ever think about it before, but being how profitable Zulrah is, seems to make sense that there would be a bot for it.
Yeah. And who knows if again the legitimacy of this whole thing, who knows, but it's certainly something that if it's happening, and I don't doubt that programs are able to do it, the amount of economical effects Zulrah can bring for just one person. I bring in a ton of stuff. I mean, Keith knows, you one person at Zulrah, that's a lot of stuff coming into the game. Having bots doing it, I mean, it's certainly something that would be an issue. So
in an instance too, I don't even know how they deal with stuff like that, but I can't imagine it being.
The one thing that stands out to me is that they're getting a 5-to-1 kill-death ratio.
Yeah,
so
I like that.
It's clearly not perfect, but the numbers are disgusting.
And
158,000 kills.
Yeah.
I did 3,000 and I made 500 mil. So it's just mind blowing.
21.34 bill. If those numbers are all legit,
if these numbers are legit, this is a perfect opportunity to see profit per kill, though. Right here, it's 21.34.
Yeah. Actually, yeah.
That's been a long time question thing. What's Zulrah per kill average? There you go. There.
And I think the last thing we have from I guess the Twitter and Reddit, all those things. Andrew Gower. Those of you who've been playing RuneScape for a long time know that name. He is the creator of RuneScape. He's actually making a new game, and really this is just kind of this is interesting, but it's this weird, I don't know, it's this grid-based thing, and you attack, and you can choose one of two factions. Really just the point I'm trying to make by bringing it up is that Andrew Gower's still making games, even after Jagex was purchased from him for a whopping sum of money. I just think it's cool.
I just tried to open that link and it was the loudest thing ever.
Yeah,
and then I closed it and I reopened it on accident. And
Steam will play the autoplay thing. Anyway, link to the Steam page. It just got greenlit, so who knows if it's just RuneScapers being like Andrew Gower, but it might be a good game. I don't know. Looks interesting. Certainly not my cup of tea, but you know, it brings you back a little bit.
Makes you remember the name at the very least. I hadn't heard much about it until like just now, so
yeah.
I'm curious to see.
I think it's cool they have a mobile version as well.
Oh, you so
that...
have to, like, for the record, like, if you're making a game that it could be on mobile, it needs to be. Because, I mean, everybody's on iPads. Twitch Mobile, I'm always surprised how many people are on actual mobile devices watching my stream. So, there you go. All right, let's get to questions. It's question time. I think that's the name of questions.
Okay, I want to do it this way. Like, just you have the hashtag tag there on Twitter. Like, just draw random ones if you have any. Like, I'm just gonna pull random ones out of here. And,
I got my
pre-prepared
stuff. But if you as a listener are interested in asking us questions in the future, you can tweet questions with using the hashtag #ConnectionLostPodcast. We will read through those every week. Come up with some questions, and the first one is for both of you, obviously, and myself. What got you into streaming in the first place? Who inspired you, perhaps? What made you take the step? Why are you streaming here on Twitch? Joey, go for it.
Let's see. Well, this isn't my first Twitch account. I had this other account. Name was the Black Kraka, and it was my initial internet moniker, that I would go by. And
can you say that again? Just
the
real
Black
close
Kraka.
to the Black
Kraka.
Yeah, it was also it's my name I used for everything. I would go to this like video game lounge that was nearby me, and my buddy Dakota, we'd always tell like, okay, what's your username? And I'd always have to say like the Black Kraka, and I would always get these just insane, strange looks. But yeah, I streamed on that account for.
Did you know what that
months.
meant when you made it?
Yeah.
Were you? So you were fully aware of what you were doing.
I made it when I was like, whenever the Xbox 360 first came out, is when I made it. And my mom came downstairs and she saw me playing Xbox Live, and she saw like my full first, middle, and last name on the screen, and she's like, Joey, why is your name just on the screen there? I was like, that's my gamer tag, and she made me change it, and so that's when I changed it to. I don't know why I thought of it, and then I just wanted to ditch that whole name. So
what got you? So what made you switch? What got you into actually getting live on Twitch?
I would stream on that account, and some just things I wanted to get away from. Some cringy type moments that I wasn't too happy with that whole stream. Just made me want to ditch that whole.
Maybe didn't want to be known as the Black Kraka for the rest of your life.
I guess just grew up would be a good term to use. And I was playing a lot of RuneScape, so I wasn't very creative with my names. I was like, 07 Scape, I'm Skiller, 07 Scape Skiller. There we go. Done. Easy peasy. And then I started streaming on this account, and within like a month or so, it became vastly more popular than my first Twitch account, which was an embarrassing story in itself. But I just always enjoyed being able to, entertain groups of people, regardless of how large.
Yeah.
Such a cringy story, but it's amazing.
It's great.
Oh, yeah.
This is why your questions are important. And that question, by the way, from the esteemed Mr. Affleck Duck. Thank you, Affleck, for the question. Keith, what got you into streaming?
I mean, money. Obviously, that's what gets everyone in. No, my brother actually.
I really wanted the dough.
I was like,
it was a clear way I could get money fast.
Make money. If that means playing video games all day, I'll have to do it. But no, my brother streams on Twitch. He streamed before I did. He did YouTube before Twitch was even like a thing. He's been into video editing and stuff like that. So I watched his stream a few times, and I never had any intention, but I was playing WoW at the time, and he was just like, you should try streaming sometime. WoW's getting a little boring. Maybe this will make it fun for you again. And it did. I had one viewer for almost a year. Probably. His name is James. His Twitch handle is Izanag, Izanag. Like, he was the only person who watched me for almost a year straight. No one else. But he came in every single day. He kept WoW interesting because I had someone to talk with the entire time while I was playing. And he specifically kept me streaming. But, my brother kind of introduced me to it through his stream, and it just kind of like turned into this, this long-term thing that I never expected. It actually, like, if it weren't for him, I would have stopped streaming a few months into WoW, and it never would have happened. So,
for me, it's real simple. I had made YouTube videos, RuneScape videos, and I dropped out of college. Was like, okay, I'll switch to YouTube, see if we can make this happen. It was always like a kind of dream thing, and found Twitch one day, and I guess Lethal Frag, look at my chicken Sacriel, those guys, had a big effect on me, and that's why I'm here today. Quickly, Keith, you have a couple questions. Hit them.
Yes. Let's pull some random ones. What got you both into old school originally? So old school RuneScape. What got you back into it?
I love this because it's very funny looking back, but I was at my cousin's house. Come play this new game we're playing. I was like, fuck that. But he signed me up for it, did the tutorial for me anyway, and then, you flash forward, suddenly I'm the only one playing after all these years. Even like
no, you old school.
Oh, old school specifically, not even just RuneScape at all.
What brought you back to old school versus either continuing on with RS3?
I just quit. It was kind of like, fuck RS3, and then it was like, oh shit, opportunity to rekindle the YouTube channel. It was kind of one of those like, everything kind of the stars aligned real fast, and I was like, oh, okay. Boom.
Well, I had lost interest in the game for a few years, and then I don't even really know what provoked me to just like create an account and log on. And just logged on, started chopping some trees. Like, fuck, I remember how much I used to get sucked into just grinding this game out. And then Christmas break passed, and I had spent hundreds of hours just playing. I was like, shit, this again? And my buddy had messaged me on Facebook. The only person that I grew up with that actually played RuneScape, same intensity that I did, and wasn't a complete noob, messaged me and it's like, dude, they're releasing an old school version of the game. And I was like, yeah, why the fuck would I want to play that stupid game again? And fast forward 6 or 7 months, and there I was logging on, and just coming back to a game mechanic wise I was very familiar with and was already pretty good at, and had a lot of good vibes tied to it. I just really enjoy grinding in games. So
I like this next question, and I want to answer this one as well because it says this question's for all three people. When, if ever, do you see yourselves not being involved in any game?
Oh, I read that question and I hate it because sadly the answer is never. I just don't see, unless I'm physically incapable of playing a video game, I don't see when, whether it's fucking Bejeweled, it counts. I'll be old and gaming's just fun. I think it's part of our generation. I just don't see me ever putting it down.
That's something I was thinking about when I read the question. I was like, I tried to imagine work, home, family life, and gaming not being a part of, maybe not that day, but that week or that month. The fact that not being involved in any game, I can't process that because I've been involved in gaming since my Atari. As a kid, it was the Atari, the Nintendo, the Super, the 64, the Xbox.
I would grow up watching my brother beat these Mario levels on the NES that me and my sister just could never get past. And when he finally beat the very last level, we were just so amazed, and always just grew up with games. And I can see myself being 40, 50 years old and still gaming and playing tabletop RPGs and stuff like that. It's definitely not something I'm going to give up anytime soon.
And some of the things that are coming out. VR, baby. We were talking about this the other day. VR is coming soon, and it's cheap. It is so much more cheap than I expected it to be. They're talking about VR being $100 for the good VR.
Yeah. It's a crazy place to. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, exactly.
VR is technology I'm very, very excited to be developed in my lifetime. I'm so stoked for that.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for listening. Joey, thank you for joining us. We will certainly have Joey on more in the future. He is very relevant to this podcast in many ways, especially since we talk about D&D so much.
Always willing to come on.
Joey, where can the listeners and viewers at home find you on the internet?
I will link my Twitch, and I will link my Twitter.
But the audio people can't hear that, Joey.
Well, it is just 07scape Skiller. You guys didn't have the overlay set up. But just 07scape Skiller is going to be both my Twitter and my Twitch handle. Pretty much everything that you'd want to contact me in any way on the internet nowadays is going to be through that handle. So you can go and hit me up there. I linked my stream. I'll link my Twitter as well for those in the chat. But
and of course, that will be in your descriptions if you need that.
And you can also see me all the time, everywhere, in tons of different people's chats and always hanging out. Keevers and I are planning to do a duo stream sometime here soon when it comes up to my place.
Yes.
Haven't done that in a while, but yeah.
And we've talked about this, Andrew, and this is something we can talk about real quick right now. At some point in the near future, we would like to get everyone from D&D at Joey's place.
Let's do it.
So
that would be a lot of fun.
I need to get outside. Thank you so much for listening.
outside.
I love you
by
long
playing
time,
D&D in
but
my
for now,
basement.
connection lost or something. I don't remember what we said we would do here.
Connection lost.
Oh, God.
Attempting the podcast.
Thank you guys so much. Enjoy yourselves. As always, the podcast will be live 5 p.m. on Thursdays unless said otherwise, and catch it on SoundCloud, YouTube, and our Twitch highlights. See you guys later. Peace. And hopefully that fancy audio played and it's exciting. Oh my God.